I asked some of the best guitar players on the internet, how do you avoid plateaus?
It's almost like you got to make peace with the fact that they're going to happen, and you don't ever realize it when you cross them. I don't remember being able to cross pick, like not be able to, like learning that. I just know that it took me years. I know it took me decades to develop some of the right hand technique that I had, but I definitely remember like listening to Pick It Apart and being like, how am I going to do that? I don't play finger styles. So like breaking through plateaus is something you don't realize you're doing because it's like the slow dig, like in Count of Monte Cristo, like when they're digging under the prison, you know, it's like, of course it's going to take 16 years, but you don't realize it's happening until you're out the other side. So
Well, a lot of my learning has just been from honestly just transcribing my favorite player solos and things like that. So I'd say the ways that I typically break through a plateau is just like find something new, find something different to learn. That's just completely like not what I've been doing. Just try and find something that's totally out of left field. Like if I've been working on blues stuff for a while, work on some jazz or some bluegrass or just whatever. Yeah, and not necessarily writing it out, but mainly just learning it. You know, learning the stuff by ear.
For me, it was always transcribing. I just felt like if I sit here and I keep doing scales, I get better at those things, but those are facilitating the plateau because I'm just good at the scales. I'm not better at phrasing, any of that stuff. You know, they're just learning from the greats and then trying to find me in there. And I felt like that always, even if I didn't enjoy, like I'm not a huge jazz fanatic, you know, but I need to be able to do it. But I always felt like if I studied something that maybe I don't like on the surface, I let it show me something. I let it teach me something, and I always got better from it. So
I've taken multiple avenues of. I mean, I think one of the best ones is always look for some new inspiration. So if you're listening to a bunch of blues, go listen to jazz, go listen to rock, go listen to funk, whatever it is, something different. I think that can be really effective. I think one of the things that always inspires me is playing with other musicians. So if you have that opportunity to go and play with some people, it's always going to make you think in a bit different way than if you're sitting at home just practicing. And the third thing that sometimes is the key, go do something else. Step away from it a bit. Come back with a fresh set of ears, a fresh perspective, and that can really just put you in a different mindset.
I always found that I could never force myself through plateaus. I had to find a way of becoming obsessed with the thing that I was trying to do. Now, there's no specific way of being able to do this. You just have to experiment a little bit. But I've found whenever I've got through a plateau, or whenever I've become good at something, it's not because I found some trick or snake oily way of getting through it. I had to essentially just become obsessed and work at that thing consistently. That's what worked for me. Not having a specific practice regime or like my time detailed out in a very specific way, just becoming obsessed and working and working and working on that thing because it was the only thing I could think about basically. So if you can find the way to become obsessed with that particular element of guitar playing or music or whatever you're doing, you're almost guaranteed to be able to push through to that next plateau.
I broke through some plateaus or slumps by setting myself a goal. Setting up for myself a goal, like a medium-term goal. Like, I need to transcribe this piece, or I need to write this lesson, or write this book. And I just sort of set myself these goals that forced me to have an end in mind. So I feel like that gets me onto the next plateau.
Persevere, but also just go to other people, go to gigs, get together with friends, take a lesson with someone who does something you want to be able to do, Sometimes I recommend it, but not too much, is like, copying somebody else. I got really into, say, Jeff Beck, and then realized I was getting too into Jeff Beck to sound like a poor imitation of the unimitatable. You know what I mean? Like, so then, but to kind of get into, you try to get into somebody else's head, and that introduces you to different ideas. And then after you start working on it, if you're conscientious about not sounding like someone else, because why would a grown human being want to sound like somebody else, really? I think Wayne Krantz said that to me many years ago when he was talking about somebody. He's like, talking about something else. He's like, why would a grown man want to sound like somebody else? And it was a good point. And so I kind of always remembered that, So if you kind of after a while, I'm sure you're saying like you've learned a lick from whoever, and then it's yours now, and it doesn't sound like the way you stole it from whoever. So I think if you're conscious of that, but for me, it was always like putting on a record, digging into somebody really heavily who is a little bit outside of what you do, and then running with that.
Well, it's pretty easy for me. I just stopped playing guitar. Like I won't touch a guitar for 3 or 4 days, a week maybe. Every time I come back to it, there's no more slump. I'm fresh. If I'm so stressed out about something that I'm playing, I just won't play anymore and just give my mind and my muscles a break. And then it just freshens up everything when you come back to it. Something else I do a lot of, and I don't know if there's a science to it, but I like to play at night before bed and just pick up a guitar and just create, because for some reason I'm like the most creative at that time. I'm sure there's science to it, but I'll always come up with the coolest riffs. I mean, the coolest to me. Like that's when I'm actually making something that's worth something to me. Like I'll come up with chord progressions or find out new licks to play or lines. So yeah, I feel the freshest at night. Or just buy a new guitar. Same thing. Yeah, there's new notes on a new guitar.
I feel like I still have so many plateaus. Honestly, what I loved doing was just getting inspired by other guitar players. I'd like, look, not really any guitar players in specific, but just like hearing other soloists, hearing other people, and kind of learning what they're doing and taking little bits and pieces of that and applying it to what I do. Like not trying to copy someone exactly, but drawing inspiration from other guitar players that I'm just like, God, I want to be able to sound that good, I would mostly just listen to it and try to pick out and learn everything by ear and just kind of put my own spin on certain things. Like I would hear certain licks that like other guitar players would play and I'd be like, oh man, I really like that. And then I would kind of take it and make it my own and change things that I felt were more my style. So a lot of just drawing from other people, but putting my own spin on stuff for sure.
That's a tricky question to answer because the solution every single time is to find a solution that's never been found before. Whatever the solution was the last time you were in a slump isn't going to be the solution this time. That's the whole point, is that a slump means you're bored and you need to find something new. There's no set answer to that, except the one thing I've just told myself that keeps me from freaking out when I feel like I'm in a slump is that a slump is actually a good thing because it means you're tired of the stuff that you've been playing all the time and you are now house cleaning and making room for new stuff. So it actually kind of I always feel like it actually means like a renaissance is around the corner or something. Like I'm about to find something new if I just keep going a little longer.
Two ways. One would have been when I was touring full time, we would get ready for a new run, put a new set list together, and have to rehearse and shed a bunch of new music and really get that together. That was one really effective way of breaking through a plateau. The way I do it now is just by putting my guitar down for a few days and listening to new stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with not playing your guitar for a week. Don't feel guilty. If you're in a plateau and you're feeling burnt out or uninspired, like put your guitar down and don't touch it for a few days and go listen to something new, or don't listen to music or whatever, but take some time away. And then when you come back, you'll be more refreshed and have some new ideas. And it's almost like your brain sort of dumps a lot of those repetitive ideas that you just play over and over again. It just sort of like resets.
Now that you've learned about plateaus on the guitar, make sure to watch this video next to learn what is the hardest part of playing the guitar.